Hello everyone, Manathrall here, and welcome back to a Suggestion Saturday video. Now, last time I did one of these, I was mentioning and talking about the suggestion of elite skill. Elite items, if you will. And I rather liked the concept of elite items, elite kind of stuff you can kind of produce. I think that's very cool. It adds a level to the game that isn't traditionally there. So I was thinking about it more and more, and it's like, well, what would make some of these things more impressive, more immersive? And I was really thinking hard about invention when it comes to elite stuff. And I know when I initially brought up, having some elite invention type stuff to have a little bit different of a thing with it. Invention, and it was okay, but it could have been a little bit better. And the reason why I say this is because you could say you have to disassemble so many full Guthin parts and this and that, but what if you actually had like a set amount and it got you one Guthin component? So let's say you had to actually disassemble 5 Guthin pieces, or 4, We'll go with 4 because that's actually the amount of pieces that are in the Guthin set, which would give you one Guthin component. Now, by doing so, you also had other things you can do with this. So it's just like there's a lot of things with invention in itself. So let's say it takes 5 Guthin components in order to even get the full thing of the Guthin perk, and the Guthin perk would give you the same type of effect as having a full set of Guthin on you. Now that does sound a bit OP, however I thought of a way to make it so it's not OP. Now it would still be extremely powerful and important, which would actually help lower end bosses like Guthin become more popular again, because you would be able to start actually going there and actually want to go there and actually want to get stuff. Where, as before, what was really the point? Because there wasn't a huge deal. It wasn't a big deal, and it kind of sucked. So if you had this, okay, now, let's say, how do you make it not OP? And that would be by, whenever your item gets maxed out. Okay, so whenever your item hits level 10, level 15, whatever your current max is, when it hits that max, the item, like the component, whenever you were to siphon it or disassemble it or whatever, the components would actually vanish. So you would get the gizmo back, but you would get an empty shell of a gizmo. That's how I think would be a very good balancing to it. I was kind of hoping I'd still get this last chest, and you do. Okay. So yeah, Hardcore Iron Man, you can go there now, and you can get clue scrolls. It's just you get different stuff. No XP boosting stuff, although you're kind of getting an XP boost by getting the items. But yeah, so once you get, the item maxed out, the components disappear, so then you have to reacquire the components. It wouldn't be that you necessarily always have those components, because you would have to keep reacquiring those components. Which, this would add a whole new depth to these special types of gear. So for instance, stuff like the Saradomin Godsword would become very important, because there would be a Saradomin Godsword component. And this component would give your attacks a passive, not only healing effect, but also passive prayer restore effect. Now it would take 2 slots, like I'd mentioned in a different video. And certain things, they won't stack with each other, but they'll work next to each other. Like if you would have Saradomin Godsword components and Guthin components, it would heal, And now the Saradomin heals relatively all the time, where the Guthrum one is here and there. So you would be getting a lot of heals, yes, but in the long run, it's going to actually start costing you a lot because, dang, I really did not have a good haul from that stuff. Because whenever you would actually get all these components, you know, you'd have to get new every single time, which would not be very easy to do at all. To keep requiring to get these components over and over again, that would keep it from becoming OP. It would also help people who are doing bossing of different levels, and it would just keep things a little bit more fresh. And this way, stuff like, you know, if you go out and fight Reaper, the Ripper demons, you could get the Ripper demon claws. I want to call them Reapers for some reason, but you can get the Ripper demon claws, and then you could actually have that effect on your weapon. But of course, since it's an elite component, whenever it gets at max level and you siphon or disassemble, you then lose that component. Well, actually, it should be that whenever you hit your max level, that those components expire. So you would have it until it hits its max, and then it expires. So you would have to keep re-establishing that component. This way, it wouldn't become OP. It would increase the value of all these weapons. It would help skillers. It would help a lot of bossers and help a lot of slayers, because it would keep asking for these kind of things to come into play. So that's actually this week's suggestion. Now, I know I didn't use a whole lot of weapons per se, because there's a lot of different weapons that you could use for this. And not just weapons, but armor sets, because eventually we can get into armor sets actually giving effects. For instance, a lot of the ports gear, if you have the full sets of the ports gear, you actually get a big boon to, like, getting port resources. It can actually be the same way with that too. It's just, to a different scale, if you will. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know what kind of components you think should be elite components, and what you think of elite components. Now, one thing also I should mention before I get out of the video is that the elite components can only be obtained by disassembling these pieces of gear. So they cannot be obtained by bank standards or any other means. It has to be by disassembling the actual item. Because if you have it disassembling the actual item, you're going to have a much different ratio of what can and can't be done. And it's going to really help people who are slayers. It's really going to help people who are bossers. This idea, I believe, is actually what Invention needs, and what bossers need and combaters need. Especially since a lot of skill items are going to be moving from Slayer and boss drops into just purely, gathering your own material. If it moves into purely gathering your own material, then it's going to have a hard time for any bossers to make money. They could add more gold valuable drops into the tables, but let's face it, that's not exactly reasonable either. Because you don't want bossing to become insanely effective when it comes to money making, but you don't want it to become non-existent. So I think this idea would be perfect. So let me know what you guys think. I'm going to actually try really hard to get a hold of Shawnee, Mod Shawnee, or one of the mods. Mod Shawnee usually seems to be very on Twitter, so I want to see about trying to get a hold of him, because he seems to really love passion projects, and this would be kind of in a passion project region. So thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, later guys.